For most of human history, a simple scratch could be a death sentence. There were no pharmacies or antibiotics. There was only a jar of honey. And the strange part, in some cases, it worked better than what we use today. For over 8,000 years, honey wasn't a snack. It was medicine. The earliest evidence of humans harvesting honey goes back over 8,000 years. Cave paintings in Spain show people climbing cliffs to raid wild beehives. But it didn't take long before someone got stung, got a cut from the climb, and noticed something: the honey on the wound didn't rot. It didn't get infected. It healed. By the time we reach ancient Egypt, this wasn't folklore anymore. It was written down. The Edwin Smith Papyrus and the Ebers Papyrus, two of the oldest medical texts in existence, prescribe honey for wounds, burns, and eye infections in over 500 separate remedies. Egyptian physicians mixed it with grease and plant fiber to make some of the first recorded wound dressings in human history. But the most incredible thing isn't just that honey heals, it's that it essentially never dies. Archaeologists found some that was 3,000 years old, and it was still edible. Here's how that's even possible. In Mesopotamia, Sumerian clay tablets from nearly 4,000 years ago list honey as a core ingredient for treating infections. In India, Ayurvedic medicine still uses honey today as what's called an anupana, a carrier substance believed to help other remedies absorb into the body. A practice that traces back over 3,000 years. In Greece, Hippocrates, the man modern medicine still names its oath after, recommended honey for everything from bald spots to ulcers. Aristotle wrote about its healing properties. Roman soldiers reportedly carried it into battle to treat wounds in the field. Now, you're probably thinking, was this just a placebo, dressed up as medicine? Here's why it wasn't. None of these civilizations were in contact with each other when they started using honey this way. Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, Greece, they all independently arrived at the same answer, thousands of miles and centuries apart, with zero communication. When something works that consistently across cultures that never spoke to each other, it's not superstition, it's evidence. And here's the science that proves it. Ancient people didn't know why honey worked. They just knew it did. Now we do, and it's almost unbelievable that something this simple is this effective. First, honey is a desert for bacteria. It's so dense with sugar and so low in water that bacteria literally can't survive in it. They dehydrate and die on contact. Remember that honey we mentioned, found in Egyptian tombs, still edible after 3,000 years. This is exactly how that's possible. Nothing can grow or rot in an environment this dry. Second, honey makes its own antiseptic. Bees add an enzyme to nectar that slowly produces hydrogen peroxide, the same stuff in the brown bottle in your medicine cabinet, directly onto a wound at a low, steady, non-damaging rate. Third, it's acidic. Honey sits at a pH between 3 and 4.5, acidic enough to slow bacterial growth, but not acidic enough to harm human tissue. Fourth, and this one wasn't even confirmed until the 1990s, honey contains a secret protein bees use for their own immune systems. It's like the bee is lending you its own natural shield. So, when an ancient Egyptian dressed a wound in honey 3,500 years ago, they were unknowingly applying a natural antiseptic, a slow-release disinfectant, and a literal piece of a bee's immune system all in one substance, with zero understanding of microbiology. They didn't have the science. They just had results, repeated enough times to trust it. Here's the twist. Ancient humans didn't choose honey instead of medicine. Honey was their medicine. There was no other option on the shelf. No penicillin, no antiseptic spray, no antibiotics. Those wouldn't exist for thousands of years. Honey wasn't the backup plan. It was the only plan that consistently worked in a world with no other plan at all. But as the 20th century brought the miracle of wonder drugs like penicillin, we put the honey jar back in the pantry until we realized those wonder drugs had a weakness. Bacteria started evolving resistance. Antibiotics that once cured almost anything started failing against certain infections. And that's when doctors went looking for backup and found it exactly where their ancestors left it. Today, medical-grade honey, specifically Manuka honey from New Zealand, is FDA recognized and used in modern hospitals to treat wounds that won't heal with antibiotics alone, including diabetic ulcers and burns. There's a literal honey-based wound dressing called MediHoney sitting in hospital supply rooms right now in 2026. We didn't outgrow honey, we just forgot it for a while, and then needed it again. To be clear, honey wasn't a cure-all, and ancient people weren't immune to disease because of it. Average lifespans were still brutally short. Honey couldn't fix a broken bone, stop a plague, or treat internal illness. It was remarkably effective for external wounds and infections, and that's exactly the gap modern medicine still struggles to fully close, which is why it's making a comeback today. So the next time you see honey on a kitchen shelf, remember, for thousands of years before a single hospital existed, it was the difference between an infection healing or killing you. Ancient humans didn't have microscopes. They didn't have germ theory. They just had a substance that worked, used by every major civilization on Earth, completely independently of each other. That's not a coincidence. That's 8,000 years of trial and error landing on the same answer. If you want more stories like this about what ancient humans actually knew that we're only now proving with modern science, subscribe to Primordial. This is exactly what this channel is going to dig into.